All right, so Justin, do you know what waves, handshakes, and toasts have in common?
Is this the topic for our conversation, or are we teeing it off with a joke?
It does sound like I'm teeing up a dad joke, but actually, I'm not. So, if you look at humanity and human civilization, humans have been designed with conflict in mind. From the dawn of time, we've always been a warring and not trusting species. So, if we go back to caveman times, you might see, or cavewoman, let me be politically correct, cave people times, as you might see an opposing tribe or a figure coming towards your tribe, your village on the horizon. You don't know if that person is a friend or a foe. So how do you know? You look at their hands. When we don't see people's hands, we get fearful because they might have a weapon. They might be coming to harm us. And one of the things that we've both learned in public speaking is to show your hands. That generates subconscious trust. And the reason is because if I see your hands are empty, I know that you don't have a weapon. I know that you're not coming to harm me. So when it comes to waving, as we walk by each other, we wave to people, right, on the street. It's a very normal thing. That's why it's a gesture, a social gesture of friendliness, because I have an empty hand. Hello, I'm not hostile. Handshakes, we're showing.
Why do we not do a double-handed wave then, Ethan?
Maybe because you're carrying something in the other hand. If we're all walking around empty-handed, we're not getting much done as a society. That's my guess. But handshakes, with the warring, if two enemies are coming to each other and they've had a truce and they want to show that my hand is empty and you clasp hands, I think we've all heard that that's where the handshake originated from, to show that I mean no harm, I mean peace. And toasts. So did you know, I learned this recently on my trip to Italy last year. The origin of toasting glasses when we celebrate and get together, it was because humans, we would sit down at a table together and there may be some trust issues there. Imagine there may be someone who's trying to secretly poison you at that table if you have a bunch of, let's say, royalty, kings and queens from different countries together. And to show that that no one poisoned each other, we must all clink our mugs together with hard force, forcing everybody's drink to spill over into the other person's drink. And that way, when we all drink immediately after, to show that, hey, we're all good here. We can all trust each other.
It is fascinating. I didn't know, I understood on the toast part, I understood the kind of all drinking together. So the showing that I will drink my drink in front of you so you can trust me. I didn't know the part about doing it with such force that they spill over into one another. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And imagine in that scenario, if someone were to maybe gently clink so they don't get a little bit in their cup. And then, or what if everyone drinks except for that one guy in the corner of the room? And you're like, wait a minute, why isn't he drinking?
Going back to our episode that we've just released, he just doesn't drink alcohol. That's all. Maybe he just doesn't drink alcohol, that individual. You know what I mean?
It might result in some bad things happening to you then.
Exactly. So I'm curious though. So with the waving, I get it. Hands up, kind of showing that I'm disarmed. If we think about police, first thing that they say, put your hands in the air, show me your hands, put your hands in the air, put your hands where I can see them, whatever it may be, whatever the term is going to be. So that makes complete sense. But I'm curious, do you think that any of us let ourselves down these days when it comes to the very simple gesture of waving or greeting others, the simple gesture of a handshake? We can leave toasts out of this part of the conversation for now. What I'm going to bring in though is the fist bump, which has definitely become more of a thing. It has. And I think we used to do it kind of tongue in cheek, but it's become more of a acceptable greeting. And I don't know if that's a post-COVID thing. I don't know if it's a hygiene thing, but It definitely has maybe the elbow bump too. But yeah, I'm curious. What are your thoughts are? Because there was a reason that you brought this up. And do you think we let ourselves down in any way across the board here?
Well, you brought up the fist bump, and there was, for pre-COVID, I think Obama kind of he popularized the fist bump because he did it publicly. And a large percentage of the population didn't quite know what it was. And there was a little bit of controversy around it. But then once COVID hit, it became kind of a hygiene thing. And now it's very acceptable. I fist bump a lot because especially if I just wash my hand, I came out of the bathroom and I just washed my hands. Dude, I don't want to shake your hand. I just went through that whole process of washing my hands. I don't want to get it dirty again. So, hey, let's just fist bump or let's elbow bump. And I think that's totally acceptable. But it'd be considered rude if you don't do one of the things, right? If if you see someone and you don't extend one of those greetings, I mean, someone that you know well, or, you've had a great interaction with. But I think that the takeaway here for me is like, people, we need to show our hands more. In the US, and I imagine in South Africa too, there are situations with the police where there's been a lot of controversy, and I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but a lot of controversy with police being abusive or even killing people who are innocent. And if you put yourself, and they say it's racial profiling, and that does happen. I understand that there are some bad players, and that does happen. But if you put yourself in the police officer's shoes, that police officer needs to know if they can trust you. So if you take the same person, regardless of race, if you're walking down the street at night and you see a guy in, let's say, a hoodie, pulled up, you can't see his eyes, and his hands are in the hoodie, you don't know his intention. So your subconscious automatically is kind of on guard, because you're like, wait a minute, can't see this person's hands. Maybe I can't see their eyes. I don't know if they're coming to hurt me, regardless of skin color, right? And if it's that same person and they could be out for a jog or something, and you see that, that's why when I'm jogging, I'm always waving at people, and they see my headphones. You have these little clues like, okay, this dude, he means no harm. He's just minding his business. But I always wave and let people know I'm a friendly. So and I try to tell this to my kids, like, it's you want to send the right social subconscious signals and show your hands, show those trust signals.
Yeah. I like that. And that's obviously a very serious scenario to be in when we're speaking about disarming yourself from being a potential threat to a police officer. I'm standing here thinking about, just in more social settings or in a work setting, how you can make sure that and I'm just going to use the term, how do you make sure you're not rubbing somebody the wrong way? And what I mean by that is, if you're standing there with your hands in your pockets, that's hiding your hands, and that might be a frustration for somebody else. I know it's a very casual thing to do, but let's just speak about it maybe in a work setting, a professional setting, a networking setting. And there'll be times where it's quite acceptable, don't get me wrong. But when you're just engaging with somebody for the first time, it probably is worth getting your hands out of your pockets and having them where they can see them. And as you're speaking, and I do it a lot, just naturally, I use my hands a lot when I'm speaking. But that's great. Have a cup of coffee in the one hand, or have a beer in the one hand, and engage with the other. I think there's something to that, because for me, it shows that the person is engaged and interested in the interaction that they're having with me. A lot of times, if you're just standing there kind of slouched over to one side, weight on one leg mainly, and both hands in your pockets, the signal that I will sometimes be reading is you want to be somewhere else, or you want to be standing in a different group of individuals having a different conversation.
Yeah. I think the key here is, and would be the king move, be aware of what your hands are doing whenever you're engaging, whether you're talking to one person or to a crowd of 1,000. Showing your hands shows trust. There have been studies that prove that people who speak with their hands are perceived as more likable and more warm. So even one thing I need to do is actually update with my next photo shoot. I've seen some public speakers include their hands in their profile picture, so that garners even more trust. So maybe I'll just freeze like this for a moment and hold my hands up. It's like I'm speaking on stage. I'll capture one of those. That's another reason that I always ask for a lavalier mic or a countryman mic when I'm speaking, because I like to use both of my hands. I don't want to have to be holding a handheld mic if I can help it, if the venue has one. But that would be my king move. Just be more aware of what your hands are doing in every social situation.
Yeah, I love that. Something that I do, that's a simple thing. I'm always standing in an online meeting, and I'm far enough away from my laptop that you can see my torso, well, some of my chest, but my hands. And that's a really important thing for me to do, to engage with people. So that's one thing. But the king move that I will leave everyone with is, when you do actually give a handshake, do it with some intention and conviction. That is my word. Do it like you mean it, because that also people can read into, if it's not done with conviction and intention, that you would rather be anywhere else, or go to a really strong fist bump. But do either of those with intent and conviction, and look somebody in the eye as you do so.
That's right. Look them in the eye, smile. Love that. Great king move. All right. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Ethan.